Or what?
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
Nobody wants a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? The outrage.
I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
Every way that Disney changed the story, it changed it for the worse.
The new Disney boss babe, who is Rachel Zegler, the inverse of happy.
So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution.
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
Now, I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
Rachel Zegler, she's an...
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
And, you know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie. And I believe it only made less than $1 million in China.
They spent $170 million to make the thing, and it had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
When Disney announced Rachel Zegler would lead the Snow White remake, it made waves across Hollywood news. She was a rising celebrity fresh off West Side Story, and the studio framed it as a modern, inclusive update to a classic. But things went south fast. In early interviews, Zegler called the original film outdated and weird. She mocked the love story and labeled the prince a stalker. For fans, it didn't feel like a fresh spin. It felt like Disney was trashing its own legacy. The backlash spread fast across celebrity gossip outlets and entertainment news. A project meant to be empowering had already triggered the start of what would become the Snow White backlash.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. She's not going to be safe with the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
Oh my God.
Because what she said next didn't just offend fans, it alienated millions of potential moviegoers, and there was no coming back from it. The Rachel Zegler Snow White backlash was already gaining traction, but things escalated when fans started digging through her old social media posts, and what they found hit like a bomb. Zegler had posted harsh political rants, including messages telling Trump voters to never know peace. Some posts used direct insults. Others went even further. The tone wasn't just opinionated, it felt hostile.
So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump.
President Rachel Zegler also posted, F Trump kinds of posts on social media. She also said that she hoped that Trump supporters, quote, never know peace.
But you are not entitled to call for Trump supporters to be harmed. Like, you are actually not entitled to do that. And so let me just remind you, Rachel Zegler, of what the map looks like, just so you can understand when your Disney movie is coming out, how many people you are wishing harm upon. Like, this is America right now. I will love you through these 4 years as best I can. F Donald Trump. Yeah, totally stable thing for her to be posting, wishing harm upon Trump voters, wishing that we have no peace.
And they postponed the release of this thing, Ben, for a year because their star, Rachel Zegler, was so unlikable, told all Trump supporters that they could off, excuse me, but she did. That was just in November. They didn't even know she was going to do that.
Suddenly, a Disney Snow White remake was tied to real-world division. Even people who disliked Trump thought her post crossed a line. It wasn't just celebrity gossip anymore. It became national entertainment news. She did issue an apology, but many called it cold and calculated. And instead of toning things down, Zegler doubled down in interviews, saying she stood by everything she'd said. That move lit up Hollywood gossip pages and fueled the call for a full-on Rachel Zegler boycott.
Then she came out and she said, I apologize. Like, I went too far, but it wasn't sincere.
And the timing couldn't have been worse, because what Disney did next turned the controversy into a complete identity crisis. As the Rachel Zegler controversy spread, attention shifted to the film itself, and that's where the real damage began. Disney had promised a fresh, modern take on Snow White, but fans quickly noticed it wasn't just an update, it was a complete overhaul. Gone was the love story, gone were the iconic songs, and gone was any trace of warmth the original was known for.
The movie has a major identity crisis.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
The movie is doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million, and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
I sat through the whole thing. This was really bad. It was extremely leftist on every political dimension: racial politics, sexual politics, class politics, regime politics. Its narrative was cowardly. It was just awful.
It's got extra musical numbers that are incredibly unnecessary that really add to that runtime. And let me go ahead and let you know that they're absolutely f***ing atrocious.
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative.
They say all you have to do to make your wish come true is let it echo, 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 echo.
It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphorical level? What is it?
In interviews, Zegler bragged that her version of Snow White didn't need a man. She mocked the prince, and the romance was erased altogether. What fans got instead was a rewritten heroine who seemed more like a lecture than a character. If you're seeing why fans felt betrayed, tap like so more people hear about this. And if you know someone still defending this remake, share it with them and see what they think. The villain, once driven by jealousy over beauty, now had a vague, power-hungry motive. Critics called it hollow. The new songs, generic and forgettable. Let It Echo became the line everyone cringed at.
And accusing Disney of inserting unnecessary feminism into classic fairy tales.
These big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous. How dare you want to meet a handsome prince and be swept off of your feet and live happily ever after? No, you should want to be the prince. You should want to go out and fight the bad guys with a sword.
So no prince or a different kind of prince? I'm sure a lot of people will assume it's a love story just because like we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Who the hell are you to say all of Andrew's scenes could get cut? Like, who are you?
Oh my God.
Are you Disney? I've read your book, and I have. It's a phenomenal book. You're losing generation of loyal viewers. When you think about Snow White, what is the premise? What is the story?
It's a love story. It's a love story.
It's a dream for a girl to grow up and a man falls in love.
I'm really upset that it's the biggest theme here is that it's anti-men. She called him a stalker.
It felt like woke Disney had taken the original fairy tale, stripped out the heart, and replaced it with messaging. Even Hollywood news outlets started calling the film soulless. But if removing the love story upset fans, what happened next sent the backlash into overdrive. Just when the backlash over Rachel Zegler Snow White was heating up, Disney made another move that sent the controversy into freefall. Actor Peter Dinklage had called the dwarfs in the original film an outdated trope. Instead of adjusting the characters, Disney scrapped them entirely. No dopey, no grumpy, no bashful, just vague magical creatures brought to life with CGI.
Then they got even crazier and they decided that the dwarves in Snow White weren't woke enough, okay?
These are roles made for actors of my stature. I can't go out for the Harrison Ford or the George Clooney roles because that's not for me.
Right.
And now it's taken away. I don't feel that's right.
Did the dwarfs make it or no?
Well, the CGI dwarfs did. Of course, that goes back to the original controversy where Peter Dinklage, a very talented little person actor, said, why are we doing that? We've hired a Latina actress to be Snow White. That's progressive. But you're going to hire little people to play the dwarfs? That just seems like a step backwards. And then, of course, Disney instantly buckled and said, okay, we're going to add magical creatures.
It didn't land well. The change was supposed to be progressive, but it backfired hard. Little person actors, who rarely get major roles, were suddenly cut out of the story altogether. For many, it felt like woke Disney had erased the very group they claimed to protect. Leaked images showed a bizarre lineup of stand-ins, tall actors, inconsistent costumes, and a complete lack of charm. Hollywood gossip sites had a field day. What should have been a whimsical update looked like a rushed attempt to avoid headlines.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work. That many scripts that come down the pike.
No, only 7 of them.
That has, and there's 7 dwarf jobs here, but because I think it was Peter Dinklage said this is, this is not right to...
The 7 dwarfs of Snow White, who of course all just disappeared, and now they're the 7 dysfunctional men, I assume.
I mean, I guess, what are we going to have? Like a lesbian, a trans person, someone in a wheelchair, someone of color? Like, I don't understand. Why weren't the dwarfs enough? But apparently they were too offensive because the most famous dwarf of all, Peter Dinklage, said something negative about it back in 2022, thus ruining the biggest acting roles the dwarfs had ever seen since the creation of Willy Wonka's Oompa Loompas back in the 1970s.
They couldn't have dwarves. Do you guys remember
Yeah,
that?
because Peter Dinklage and all them were talking crap.
So originally they
Do you have
took
a picture of what the dwarves were supposed to look like?
I can find it, but it was an array. It was the DEI of
DEI
dwarves.
dwarves.
Yep. Well, they had to
Yes.
reshoot the film and use CGI dwarves. There
So
you go.
those guys didn't make it.
No.
That guy's 6'2".
And they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves. So, ho ho.
The irony? Disney created the exact headlines they were trying to avoid. And if the backlash wasn't loud enough already, the box office numbers were about to make it impossible to ignore. Disney expected Snow White 2025 to be a guaranteed win. A $200 million legacy remake led by a rising celebrity should have been box office gold. Instead, it was a disaster. The film opened to just $43 million, a shockingly low number. As one reviewer put it, this is the lowest opening under $50 million of any of these live-action Disney remakes. The phrase complete disaster started trending in entertainment news circles. In China, the film reportedly made less than $1 million. Disney's global strategy had failed, badly. Even celebrity gossip pages weren't focused on the red carpet anymore. They were focused on the numbers. Critics tore into the tone. Parents said the film lacked heart. Younger audiences called it cringe. And longtime fans felt betrayed by how the story, and its message had been rewritten. Toy shelves told the same story. Tie-in dolls, wands, and merch sat untouched. The excitement just wasn't there. It wasn't just a flop. It was the worst Disney remake performance in years. Let me know in the comments. Was this movie doomed the moment the script changed? Or could a different cast have saved it? I'm reading every take.
They spent $170 million to make the thing, and it had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
And while the numbers were brutal, what came next behind closed doors hit even harder. As the Snow White 2025 drama unfolded in public, things inside Disney were getting worse. Executives had expected a blockbuster. Instead, they were staring at a full-blown Disney remake backlash and scrambling for answers. Whispers of internal panic spread fast. Some blamed the Rachel Zegler controversy, others pointed to the script, and a few even questioned whether the studio had lost touch with its audience altogether. Behind the scenes, the mood was tense. With multiple flops piling up, insiders hinted that layoffs were on the table. Investors were frustrated, and Disney's leadership faced growing pressure to explain how such a massive project had gone so wrong. Meanwhile, Zegler's reputation in Hollywood took a serious hit. Online chatter labeled her box office poison. Studios started to worry, not about her talent, but about the baggage. Even her undeniable singing ability wasn't enough to outweigh the risk. And the worst part? The damage might have been avoidable if just a few key decisions had gone differently. The failure of Snow White 2025 didn't come from one moment. It came from a pattern. Fans didn't reject the idea of a modern princess. Movies like Frozen and Tangled had already proved that. The problem was how Rachel Zegler's Snow White was delivered, not with heart, but with attitude. Critics pointed out that Zegler's version didn't feel relatable. It felt like a lecture. Interviews where she laughed at the old romance made it worse. Fans weren't against change. They just didn't want to be mocked for liking what came before. That's where Disney miscalculated. Instead of blending new ideas with classic charm, they replaced everything and expected audiences to stay loyal. But this time, nostalgia wasn't enough to save them. Could the film have worked with a different actress or a more balanced script? Some say yes. Others believe the studio was too far gone the moment it chose to remake a classic by tearing it apart. And as for Zegler, the real test was coming, because now her reputation was on the line. For Disney, Snow White 2025 wasn't just a flop, it was a warning. Audiences are done giving blind trust to legacy remakes. Nostalgia alone doesn't cut it anymore, especially when the original story feels disrespected. The Disney remake backlash wasn't just about a script. It was about tone, attitude, and the feeling that the studio had forgotten who their audience really is. And for Rachel Zegler, the celebrity backlash hit harder than expected. Her outspoken interviews, political posts, and mocking of the original didn't just spark debate, they drove fans away. In an industry where reputation shapes opportunity, her next move matters more than ever. The Snow White controversy didn't just damage one film. It raised questions about Disney's entire direction. Can they win back the fans they've lost? Will future remakes find balance or keep doubling down on what clearly isn't working? This was supposed to be a modern fairy tale. Instead, it became a case study in how to alienate your audience. So now the question's on the table. Was Snow White doomed by bad choices or by the people making them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Could this have been saved with a different lead or a more faithful script? Or was it always headed for disaster? And don't forget to like and subscribe for more real talk on the biggest stories in Hollywood.